The streets of Pretoria vibrated with a familiar energy. Despite spending years traveling the world, leading groundbreaking companies and rubbing shoulders with the world's greatest leaders, Elon Musk still felt a special emotion returning to his hometown. The warm air of South Africa, laden with the sense of street markets and the buzz of conversations in several languages, awakened in him childhood memories that he thought were buried. He walked with a measured step, surrounded by a few discreet bodyguards who tried not to attract attention. But he knew her face was hard to ignore. Everywhere he went, people whispered, some took out their phones to take a discreet photo, others dared to call out to him, admiring. "It's Elon Musk," whispered a teenager to his friend, pointing at him.
Impossible.
What would he do here, in a market? Elon smiled slightly hearing these whispers. He was used to this kind of reaction. But today, he wasn't coming back for the glory or the spotlight. He simply wanted to feel the authenticity of his native country, to revisit places he had known as a child, to taste flavors that reminded him of his childhood. The market he was passing through was one of those places where time seemed to stand still. Vendors lined up their wares under large, brightly colored umbrellas, shouting their offers to passers-by. The smell of spices and warm bread mingled with that of ripe fruit and fresh fish. Children ran between the stands, laughing out loud, while women negotiated the price of vegetables with formidable expertise. As he scanned the scene, a figure caught his attention. A few meters away, an elderly woman sat behind a modest stand, where oranges and apples were neatly arranged. His slightly bent back, his wrinkled and tired hands, told of a life of hard work. She wore a simple dress and a scarf on her head, and her movements, although slow, were marked by gentleness and precision. But it wasn't his clothes, or even his hands, that struck Elon in the heart. They were his eyes. A shiver ran down his spine.
Those eyes.
He knew them. His breath caught for a moment, and a torrent of fuzzy memories surged through his mind. Indistinct images of his childhood, nights where he fell asleep lulled by a soft voice, bursts of laughter in a garden, the smell of hot porridge prepared with love. The beating of his heart accelerated. It was impossible. And yet, carried by an uncontrollable impulse, he advanced, his steps slowed by an emotion that he did not yet fully understand. "Excuse me, ma'am," he whispered, his voice barely audible. The woman looked up at him. At first, she simply seemed surprised by the attention of a strange man. But as he scrutinized his face, his features froze. A breath escaped his lips. Her eyes widened, as if she had just seen a ghost. His trembling hand went to his mouth, unable to contain his emotion. "Elon." The voice was weak, broken with surprise and disbelief. Elon felt a shiver run through his entire body. There was no longer any possible doubt. In that moment, the memories became absolutely clear.
Miriam.
My God, it's really you. Miriam had never forgotten Elon. Despite the decades that passed, despite the trials and years of work, the image of this curious and dreamy little boy remained engraved in his mind. He was this bright-eyed kid, insatiably hungry to understand the world. She still remembered the 1,000 questions she asked tirelessly.
Miriam, why does the sky change color at sunset?
Why do stars shine differently from each other? How can a rocket fly? Sometimes she didn't have all the answers, but she always found a way to captivate him with stories, mixing science and imagination. She also remembered her little fingers methodically dismantling her toys, trying to understand how they worked with fierce determination. And when he managed to put them back together, a victorious smile lit up his face. Today, this child stood before her. He was no longer this boy with a mind bubbling with dreams. He had become one of the most influential men on the planet. Miriam couldn't believe it. His gaze wavered between disbelief and admiration. She placed a trembling hand on her chest, shaking her head gently, as if she couldn't believe what she was seeing. "Look at you," she stammered, tears beading in the corners of her tired eyes. "You have become this man that the world admires." His voice broke on the last words. She never imagined seeing again this boy whom she had taken care of with so much love. Elon was upset. He could have encountered Miriam anywhere, in a happier context, in a comfortable house surrounded by his family. But finding her like this, behind a fruit stand, in a modest market, it made his throat tighten. He looked at her face wrinkled by time, her hands marked by years of hard work, and a deep feeling of injustice invaded him. How could a woman who had given him so much tenderness and care find herself in such a situation? He felt a pang in his heart, a dull guilt. He had never tried to find out what had become of her. Life had carried him away in its whirlwind of projects and success, and somewhere he had forgotten an essential part of his past.
Do you live here?
He asked with a hint of worry.
How are you?
Miriam, who had always carried life with resilience, offered him a gentle smile, but one filled with sadness.
Oh, you know.
Life hasn't been easy. She looked down for a moment, as if hesitating to say more, then continued in a measured voice. After your family moved, I found myself alone. I did what I could. I had children, but here in South Africa life is hard for people like me. I worked where I could, as a servant, as a seamstress, as a saleswoman. Anything that allowed me to survive. With age, it became more difficult to find work. So now I sell fruit. It's not much, but God is good. I always have a roof over my head and something to eat. His words were tinged with humble resignation. She wasn't complaining. She said it as a simple fact, as if she had learned to accept her fate without bitterness. But Elon felt something break inside him. God may have been good, but he could not allow Miriam to live like this. It wasn't fair. He wanted to go back in time, to go back to the time when she prepared his morning porridge, when she lulled him to sleep with her stories. He would have wanted to protect her, to ensure that she never lacked anything. Her gaze rested on her stand, on these fruits that she had to sell one by one to survive. The image seemed unbearable to him.
None.
He couldn't leave things like this. That same evening, Elon invited Miriam to one of the most prestigious hotels in Pretoria. The suite he had booked offered a breathtaking view of the city, illuminated by the night lights. It was a stark contrast to the small market where he had found her earlier in the day. When Miriam entered the suite, she shyly looked at the elegant furniture, the large crystal chandeliers, and the plush rugs beneath her feet. She had never set foot in such a luxurious place.
My God, Elon.
It's too much. I can't, she whispered, visibly moved. Elon smiled and gently took her hand. Miriam, this is nothing compared to everything you have done for me.
Tonight, you are the queen.
They sat in the private room, where a refined dinner was served to them. But more than luxury, it was the pleasure of meeting a loved one that made this moment unforgettable. They talked for hours, reminiscing about their past. Miriam laughed as she recounted how, as a child, Elon spent entire days making rockets out of plastic bottles and tape. And you absolutely wanted to make them fly, she exclaimed, laughing.
I still remember the day you almost set the garden on fire with your experiments.
Elon burst out laughing, a sincere and hearty laugh, that of a man who found a part of himself that he thought was lost. It's true. But you were always there to clean up my mess and encourage me instead of scolding me. Their memories followed one another, between laughter and emotions, and the more the evening progressed, the more Elon felt a certainty growing within him. He had to do something for Miriam.
Something big.
A few days later, he arranged a private meeting with Miriam and her children in a large office with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Miriam, dressed in her best clothes, a simple but elegant dress she had received from the hotel, was nervous. His children, adults today, shared his apprehension. They knew Elon Musk was a busy and influential man, but they didn't know why he brought them together. When Elon entered the room, he gave them a sincere smile before sitting down across from them. He took a deep breath and spoke to Miriam in a voice full of emotion. Miriam, you took care of me when I was just a child. You gave me love, support, and I can never thank you enough for that. But I'll try. He took out a leather envelope and handed it to her. Miriam took it with trembling hands, glancing hesitantly at her children before slowly opening it. When she took out the documents and read the first few lines, Her breath caught. His eyes widened. Elon.
What is this?
She whispered, her throat tight. Elon leaned towards her slightly, a tender smile on his lips. It's a house. Miriam looked up at him, completely overwhelmed.
A house.
She repeated, as if she didn't dare believe what she had just heard. Yes. A home for you and your family, fully paid for, in a safe and comfortable neighborhood. Miriam put a hand to her mouth, shaking her head in shock. You will never have to worry about accommodation again, Elon added in a soft voice. A silence fell, broken only by Miriam's muffled sobs. Her children, also in tears, looked at the document, confirming that it was indeed the deed to a house. My God! My God! Miriam whispered, unable to speak, overwhelmed by emotion. But Elon wasn't finished. He took out another file and placed it carefully on the table. And that's not all, he announced. Miriam raised her head, her eyes still shining with tears, unable to imagine what could still await her. I also transferred you shares of Tesla and SpaceX. Her children froze, understanding before her the magnitude of this gift. You are now a shareholder in my companies. This means that every month you will receive dividends that will ensure your financial security for the rest of your life. Miriam looked at him as if seeing a miracle happening before her eyes.
No.
No, it's too much, she stammered, upset.
I can't accept.
Yes, you can. Elon gently took her hand. You looked out for me when I was vulnerable.
Today, it's my turn to watch over you.
Miriam burst into tears, unable to contain the emotion that overwhelmed her. His children were also crying, not believing their eyes. It was a miracle.
An impossible dream come true.
Miriam, this woman who had given everything for love and who expected nothing in return, had just seen her destiny turned upside down by the gratitude of a child she had loved as her own. The weeks that followed were like a fairy tale. Miriam moved into her new home with her children and grandchildren. The first time she crossed the threshold, she collapsed in tears. Elon had given her much more than a roof over her head. He had given her back her dignity, her security, and the peace she had never had. Now she no longer had to sell fruit to survive. She could get up in the morning without fearing the next day. And every month she received a stable income thanks to the actions of Elon, who regularly checked on her well-being. But beyond material wealth, what Elon really offered Miriam was recognition and love. He had not forgotten her. And in this world, there was no greater gift. A few weeks later, an event once again turned Miriam's life upside down. Elon invited her to visit the United States, a country she had only seen images of on television. For the first time in her life, she took a plane. When she arrived at the Los Angeles airport, a driver was waiting for her with a sign with her name. She got into a luxurious car, her hands trembling slightly, her heart pounding with excitement and disbelief. The landscapes passed before his eyes. Wide highways, imposing skyscrapers, luminous signs sparkling in the night. Everything was so big, so different from his daily life in South Africa. Elon warmly welcomed her to his villa, where a team ensured that she was installed with all possible comfort. But he had one more surprise, a proposition that would change the course of his existence in unimaginable ways. That evening, as they sat under a starry sky, he gently placed his hand on hers and said, "Miriam, all my life you have told me stories under the stars. Today, it's my turn to take you to see the stars." Miriam frowned, not immediately understanding.
You man?
She asked, hesitant. Elon smiled, amused by her perplexed look. I want you to be one of the first civilian passengers on a SpaceX spaceflight. I want you to see Earth from space. Miriam burst out laughing, at first thinking it was a joke.
Elon, be serious.
Me? In space? But he wasn't joking. His look was sincere, full of tenderness and determination. Yes, you can. And you will, he replied, smiling. Over the next few days, Miriam was overcome by a succession of emotions. She hesitated, tried to refuse, but Elon gave her no choice. You always told me that dreams have no limits. Today, It's me who proves it to you. She finally accepted, although the idea seemed unreal to her. A few months later, the whole world had its eyes glued to an exceptional event. At the SpaceX launch pad, surrounded by engineers, astronauts and journalists, Miriam was about to have the most incredible experience of her life. She wore a spacesuit specially designed for her, with her name embroidered on the chest. His children and grandchildren, who came from the four corners of the world, attended the event with tears in their eyes. Elon was there, watching over her as she had once watched over him.
Are you ready?
He asked her. Miriam took a deep breath and nodded. I have never been so ready. When she settled into the capsule, her heart was beating at a frantic pace.
The countdown sounds in the control room.
T-10.
9, 8.
The engines roared beneath her, and suddenly, an incredible force propelled her skyward. She closed her eyes for a second, praying inwardly, then opened them to see the Earth moving away at breakneck speed. A few moments later, silence. Weightlessness. Miriam was floating in space. She slowly brought her face closer to the porthole and, at that moment, she saw Earth in all its splendor.
A blue and white sphere, suspended in the black immensity of the universe.
Tears ran down her cheeks. It's beautiful, she whispered. She thought about her life, her modest childhood, her struggles, her sacrifices. Never, even in her wildest dreams, would she have imagined one day seeing the planet from space. Thousands of miles away, Elon watched her smile through the control station camera. His heart sank. He knew he had done the right thing. Miriam was no longer just the nanny of a curious little boy. She was no longer just a fruit seller in a South African market. She was a woman who had marked the life of a child, and this child, who became one of the most influential men in the world, today paid her eternal tribute. When she returned to Earth, Miriam was greeted as a hero. Millions of people followed his journey. She became an icon, a symbol of gratitude, recognition, and the unexpected in life. Journalists from all over the world wanted to hear her story, to know how a simple woman, who had never left her country, ended up touching the stars. But for her, it wasn't about fame. Sitting on a bench, facing the sea, she thought about everything she had experienced. She looked up at the night sky, searching for the stars. And in the silence of the night, a certainty imposed itself on her. The love and kindness we give are never forgotten. They always come back, one way or another.